Mortal Online 2 is a hardcore full loot PvP MMO, and the learning curve in this game is steep, and it's even harder when you choose to play a mage. So today I wanted to release a full ultimate mage guide for MO2, covering the different mage builds, which are best for team and solo play, how to level up a mage from the start and the skills you need to pick up and max along the way, the different schools of magic, how to unlock them, and the pros and cons of each school, and then just some tips on how to play a mage, positioning, the sort of best spells, scribing your spellbook, things like that. Mages look really squishy, weak, and hard to play, and they kind of are, but once you know how to play a mage, you can fight toe-to-toe against people in steel, you can be an amazing asset to your team either by healing, dealing damage, dismounting people, and you can farm some of the strongest mobs in the game. I'm going to timestamp all of this too, so if there's certain things you want to jump through, you want to jump past the Haven and the character crate, you've already got your build sorted, you can do that. So let's get straight into it. First up, the different mage builds. So if you want to be a mage, there are lots of different races you can be, but there are two that I would really recommend, and they are humans and alvarins. Humans right now are really popular because of two clades. The cleric clade, which lets you wear more armor before suffering lower mana regeneration, which basically means the heavier your armor, the lower your mana comes back. As a human, you can wear heavier, tankier gear and still be at around 70% mana regeneration. Then you've got Tactician, which reduces the damage you deal to allies, meaning you can do Necromancy or Elementalism into big groups of people, and you can deal full damage to the enemies and less damage to your allies. Plus, if you're new, it's less of a problem if you accidentally hit your own teammates. The other really good race is Sheevra Alvarins. These get the Thaumaturge clade, which gives you a 50% chance not to use any regents, and then multiple clades which give you increased speed and gives you buffs to get away from people faster. Okay, then onto the builds. When you're looking at what type of build to play, it's important to decide where you want to play. Are you going to be playing in big teams? Are you going to be in a guild of 20, 30 people going into big fights? Or are you going to be playing solo? Because that depends on the sort of mage you want to play. So let's go over some builds and the reasons for taking certain things. One thing to bear in mind is how intelligence works in this game. That the way to get more intelligence is to change your age and your weight. So if you're very old and very fat, you have huge intelligence. If you're skeletal, you have huge intelligence. However, if you want to go something in the middle, you want to be quite stout, you still want to have decent health, you still want to be able to use a weapon and use armor, you're only going to get around 100 intelligence. So that's something to bear in mind when we talk about the builds. Now, I can't go through every single build in full detail because this video would be an hour long, giving full detailed breakdowns of every single build and how to build them out. But I have got a website fully with tons of really good meta builds on, which I'll link down below. And this is the site here. So depending on how you want to play, if you want to play as a big fat mage, you can play the Elementalist build. This is age 62, so you push the slider all the way, you go obese, and you have over 250 mana, you have over 130 intelligence. Here's all the clades you would take to build it out, and some tips on different things that work mounted magery or elementalism, and the different ways you can sort of play this big fat mage playstyle. Then we've got things like the Dex Mage, which is the opposite. It's a sheevra, it's very slim, it's very fast, it can get away and reposition really fast. It works really well with Necromancy. It's very, very, very good for small scale, but it doesn't have as much power as the Fat Mage in team fights. And then there's hybrid builds. We've got the Paladin and the Death Knight. So if we go on these keep everything more central. So you have an age of 30, you stay stout, which is in the middle. So you don't have crazy high intelligence. You only have around 100, but then you don't suffer the negative, so you can still keep up with other footies, you can use heavy armor and a weapon, and you're very balanced in the middle. Again, very good in endgame, very meta. You can use magic, you can use Awe Surge for big AoE damage in fights, then you can pull a weapon and fight with your teammates. So there's a lot of different builds you can take as a mage, and I've got a lot of the meta ones on here. In this video, you're going to see footage, I showed some in the intro, of me playing, and I play this one. So the bulging sheevra. Yeah, I personally really like the sheevra mages because you have the speed to get away and to reposition and keep yourself up and to get to those good positions. If you're, say, a necromancer, you can get out of an enemy's attack and then get back in with a death hand, trading really well. If you're playing as an elementalist, you can jump onto things, you can get up high, and you can outrun footies and then elemental down to them into groups, or use your elementalism to block out doors or to create distance. So yeah, this is how I like to play. It's very ratty, it's very fast, and it still has really good damage. Okay, so once you've made your mage, this is going to be aimed at pure beginners. We're going to do an introduction to the mage. As soon as you come out in Haven, talk to the magic tutor, and that will unlock your first school of magic. Just talk to him, press OK, And that will unlock the ecumenical school of magic in your skills. So you can now use the basic school of magic and healing, which is probably the most used and one of the most important. Now, here's all the different spells and all the different schools of magic you can learn, and we'll go through them in detail later. But all you want to do in Haven, or you can really do in Haven, is ecumenical. So that's the one we want to focus on. And the next thing to know is, before you can cast a spell after unlocking the School of Magic, you need two things. You need regents. Every spell in the game has a regent, which you need to go right next to him to the magic vendor, and this is where you get regents. And you also need a spellbook. So you need a book which has the spells in it, which goes in your inventory. That's a permanent item that doesn't drop on death. And then you need regents, which are used, they're consumed to cast the spells. So the first thing you want to work on is just making a bit of money in Haven. So, pick some vegetables, go kill the zombies, and then you'll have enough money to buy the spellbook and some regents. So once you have that, head back to the magic vendor and purchase a magic spellbook. This will give you your basic spells, and then any additional spells you need to have scribed into it, which we'll also cover later on. So then if you press U or right click the spellbook, you can see the different schools of magic. So there's 4 here, and these are all the different spells that you can learn in the game. But you start with this basic set here, and you can see the regents required underneath are what you need to cast the spells. You can drag them onto your hotbar like this, and then say you have put Outburst on 1, you press 1 to cast the spell, you can press 1 to cast it again, or you can then use the hotkeys Q to recast the same spell, or E to cast that spell on yourself. So if you're healing, you want to be pressing E to cast it on yourself. So you activate the heal and then cast it on yourself. If you're damaging, you'd press 1 and then Q to shoot it at someone else. So yeah, then you just buy some regents to cast the spells. Don't ever buy water, because every town has a well and you can just go over to the well and just gather water straight from the well. The other thing to be aware of is the skill range. So every single spell has a skill range, as you see here, the range like 17 to 20, 8 to 10, that sort of thing. And that is what ecumenical level you need to cast that spell. So if your ecumenical is 29 or whatever it is when you unlock it, you can't cast the spells that need 30 plus. So, but the more you cast a spell within the range, the more you will level your ecumenical spells. So if you have 29 ecumenical and you're casting a spell that's 25 to 35, you will level. And when you hit 35, you need to cast a new spell to keep leveling. That's kind of how it works. Okay, and then the only other thing to know is, if you press L and look at your skills, you need to unlock a lot of skills as a mage. Whereas a footy just goes up to something and hits it with its sword, and then it levels its sword, you need to learn a lot of different skills to make yourself work as a mage. So you want to open your map with M in Haven and head up to the library, which is this building here at the very north of the town. And this is where you buy your skill books. And you need to, a lot of the mage abilities need to be unlocked by a book, and then you can level it normally yourself. So the things you want to focus on are, first, Vitalism. You want to get the Vitalism book. This is your mana regen. So this is the parent to mana regen. So you want to buy the book, unlock that, and then every time you cast a spell and every time your mana is regenerating, you will level up mana regeneration and regenerate mana faster. Then you want to level up mental training and the things underneath it. So inside mental training, we have mental focus, which reduces the mana cost of spells, and mental offense, which increases the damage we deal with spells. All of those 2 sections, Vitalism, the things under it, mental training, the things under it, should be 100 for any character using any sort of magic. Hybrid, Tamer, Fat Mage, Dex Mage, Sheevra, all of those should be at 100. Concentration, everything in those 2 sections should be maxed. So what you can do is you can pop the book, so you can pop the Vitalism book, that will unlock mana regeneration, and then you can right click and take the book out, and then you can pop the mental training book in, and then you can start leveling mental training, and then you can take that book out, and then you can start putting the books in like that. Some have different requirements. So like to use mental focus, you need to have mental training at 50, I believe. So yeah, just get the books and then start leveling them. As soon as you've unlocked them, they will, as soon as you unlock the skill, it will unlock by doing. So that's something you should focus on before you do anything else as a mage. And don't worry about having to sit in the graveyard casting this on zombies. You can just cast on yourself. You can just stand there and outburst yourself, T-lash yourself, just cast spells on yourself and heal yourself. And then once you hit those new things, you can put those new books in and you can start leveling it all out. The higher level of the spell you use as well, you'll get more experience, I believe. So if you can level up your ecumenical spells and cast like thunder lashes on yourself, you're going to fumble them a bit as you're leveling it. But once you land that spell, cast it on yourself, you get a big jump in these stats. So don't just stand there spurting yourself. There's lots of better spells you can use to level up these core skills. But that should be your primary focus. Okay, once that's done, we can start learning the cool magic schools. And my personal favorite, the coolest one, is Elementalism. I love this school of magic. So let's talk about it. This is your big AoE, high fantasy, mage, sorcerer, spell school. So the way this works is you'll be throwing fireballs, you can change the weather, you can do these crazy big AoE spells that can like turn the tide of a siege. So yeah, Elementalism, crazy fun. Let's talk about unlocking it. And this is not the easiest. So to do this, you have to go to one of three places. You have to go to the capital city of Tindrum, you have to go down south to the jungle camp, or you have to go east to Toxai. And the way this works is you trade in rare gems and crystals to these elemental trainers to unlock the different elemental spells and elements. Now, each of these three places you can learn the basics, and then each one has a specific element or a couple of specific elements that aren't in the other. So you kind of can travel to all three and do it in all three, or you can buy these different elements off the broker. People will go down to the jungle camp and buy one and then bring it up to Fabinum to sell, things like that. So you can buy them, or you can travel and get them. And what we have to do is we have to mine these geodes and these lodestones. They come from mining, or you can buy them off the broker. I just did tasks and bought them on this character. And then once you buy these lodestones and these geodes, you go over to the elemental traders. So I'll show this from the perspective of Tindrum because I play in the north. So from the entrance of Tindrum, you just turn left and go up this path, and you head straight down this road and into the back here. This little door here is like the elemental area. Now there's an elementalist person in here. You don't talk to them, you interact with the desk. And you can see here, there is a thing in the bottom of items the vendor wants. Now what you do here is you trade these items that are wanted for the skills and the scrolls that you need. So to start with, to unlock this, first you need to get the Theory of Elementalism notes, the first one. That unlocks Elementalism as a whole. And then you can get Elemental Propulsion and Elemental Intensification. That's the two under it. That's what I would do as like the first three you'd go for. You'd go for the theoretical Elementalism, the fundamentals, and then the methods. That will unlock your basic Elementalism abilities, so you can actually cast elemental skills. And then what you have to do is you have to trade geodes or items that they want for the value of the things you're buying. And you can see here, the books we just learned, you buy them and they will unlock Elementalism as a skill. But then you also need to unlock the ability to cast Elementalism from your spellbook, and that comes from the scrolls. So you can see here, there's all these different scrolls: Elemental, Propulsion, Aggregation, Fire, Earth, Heat. So here's how that works. So if you open your spellbook and go to Elementalism, you see this big wheel. Now all the things on the outside are like the types of magic. So you've got Propulsion, which is like small little darts. Aggregation is like big fireballs and lightning balls. There's weather magic in here. So you need the parent in here, the outer ring. And then you need the element itself. So once you click the parent, then you click the element at the bottom, and then you get an ability. So for example, if you click Propulsion and then you pressed Fire, you would get a little fire blast. If you pressed Aggregation and then Fire, you would get a big fireball. Same with wind. If you did it Propulsion and wind, you'd get a little burst of wind. If you did Aggregation and wind, you'd get like a tornado kind of thing. So that's kind of how this works. So you need to not only buy the skills for your skills to unlock, you need to buy the things to put into your book. And you need to have them scribed into your book as well. So you need to find someone who can scribe them into your book for you, or learn scribing yourself, which we'll cover in here, of how to put these into your book. And then once you've had it scribed, it works like ecumenical. You look at it in your spellbook and you buy the regents you need. So if you go like Propulsion, you find something in your level range. So I just unlocked it here and I looked for a low level spell that I could cast, which was, you click the different elements of the elements you've got, and then you would drag this onto your hotbar. So you find that you align the spell, you put it on your hotbar, and then you can cast it. And it works just like any other spell. You just press the button on your bar, and then you press Q to keep casting it. And then you'll start leveling up. You can see every single cast here, we're leveling Elemental Propulsion, 41, 42, 43. And then we can cast the more exciting spells. So Elementalism doesn't start fancy. It doesn't start with these giant tornadoes and star showers. It starts very basic with very small spells. And the entry to these small spells is actually very cheap. I think like 4 geodes, maybe 5 geodes, will get you the basics of Elementalism, Propulsion, which you just saw using, and a couple of elements, which is enough to get you started. And then you can slowly work towards the other elements, the other schools of Elementalism. Okay, let's talk about Necromancy, the exciting school of Necromancy. This one is all about raising walkers and controlling walkers and then throwing, the Walking Dead at people. This literally lets you like one-shot, like solo bosses. It also has really powerful PvP spells like Death Hand, Atrophy. It's a really, really good school of magic that I'd say most mages should at least dip into. And it's much easier to unlock than, say, Elementalism or Spiritism. So to unlock this, you need to go to the vendor. So there's an occultist vendor in the very top of the map. So kind of if you're in Fabinum, you would kind of go east along the valley and then up past the Minotaur dungeon, like right of it, to this little hut. So this is where you buy the intro to Necromancy. There's also a Necromancy dungeon, but good luck down there. That's pretty contested all the time. So yeah, go to this guy, buy the Necromancy notes, right click them, unlock Necromancy, and then you just level it by casting spells. It's that easy. Now, if you don't want to risk the trip up to the vendor, then it's usually really cheap on the broker. So we just saw getting it for 10 gold, but if you go on the broker, it's inflated because people are reselling them on here, but it saves you the travel. If you're nervous about going over there, if you're a new mage and you think you're going to get deleted on the way, you can just buy it on the broker, and obviously it's more expensive the further away from the vendor you are. So yeah, just buy it or get it, right click it, unlock Necromancy. Simple as that. And then, yeah, once you've bought the spells for Necromancy and had them scribed in your book, you just cast the spells. So you can see here, you just keep raising walkers and Necromancy just levels up. And it starts with you raising little walkers that are very easy to defeat. And then you can get like strong walkers, and then you get greater walkers, which are like these big things in armor. And yeah, you just progress through that, and then you'll get like blind and some, the spells in Necromancy, get really expensive. Some of the high end spells are like 500 gold plus. So, yeah, that's the long grind of being a mage. That's your end game as a mage, is saving up the money or going on these adventures to the Necro dungeon and getting all these cool spells. But unlocking it, very easy. You can do pretty good Necromancy stuff from the get-go. Okay, now for Spiritism. Spiritism is all about going into the spirit world, so going into like the underworld. And Spiritism is not very new player friendly, to be honest. To unlock it, it's the easiest. You just go to the magic vendor and buy the Spiritism book and right click it. That's it. Then you've unlocked Spiritism. It's the easiest book to unlock. And that will let you do lots of simple things in Spiritism, like resurrecting people, casting mental projectile, which is like this big laser. But that's unfortunately where it ends for a new player, because Spiritism is kind of flawed right now. It is locked out by the ability to go into the ether. So all the rest of the spells are used in the ether. So what you need to do is you need the ability to travel from the living world to the undead world and use your magic in there. And to do that, you need portal knowledge. You need the ability to open a portal and jump through it. And these portal books are locked to one dungeon in the game, and they're very expensive. They're over 10,000 gold because they drop off the final boss of this dungeon. So this is very not something you should be looking to do as a new player. But don't let that discourage you, because this is just an end game magic school, basically. This is something that you do once you've got a good understanding of the game, you've got a good bit of money behind you, and you can get access to these things. And the whole point of it is you open a portal, you jump through into the ether world, and you fight these spirits. So you can see here with like a bunch of other players, and we're fighting these spirits. Like these orbs show up, and you laser down the orbs, and you farm these spirits, and they fill spirit boxes. So lots of other spells in the game require the use of spirit boxes, and it's spiritists that fill these boxes. You also get like rare drops in here that, are unique to Spiritism. That's kind of like the reward for being a Spiritist, for all the money you put in to get it. On top of this, there's a thing called Spirit Scouting, where in big fights, a member of your team will stay in the underworld, like in this spirit world, and they'll follow the enemy around. They'll like follow them around in the spirit world, and they'll sense where they are, and they can travel faster, and then they can give like updates on where the enemy are and where they're traveling, and they can call out like 3 players riding over this mountain, and then, your actual group of players in the living world can go over and fight them. And then your spiritist can like jump out of the spirit world, open a portal, jump out, and then start attacking with you. It's a really cool school of magic, but unfortunately it is locked due to its high cost of entry. Okay, now let's talk about scribing. All of these magic schools have different spells that go in your spellbook, and to get them, you need to have them scribed into your book. So I believe it's the Tindrum sewers, which is in a town in the sewers. There is a boss that drops the Scribing book, which unlocks the scribing skill. So you can go and find that, or you can buy it. It's not that expensive, so you can just buy the Scribing book. And then once you have the skill unlocked, every time you scribe a spell, you gain experience in scribing. So it takes, the best scribes can scribe the hardest spells. That's kind of how it works. And the big issue with scribing in Mortal Online 2 is you have to trade somebody your spell book to have it scribed, which is terrifying. So please don't trade randomers that you don't know your spellbook, because they can just take it. So yeah, only trade it to like people in your guild or your friends, or become a scribe yourself, or like there are people in the community that are well known and trusted. So yeah, please be careful with your spellbook. And then all you do once you're a scribe is you right click the scroll, you right click the book you want it to put into, and you hold to scribe, and then that spell gets added to the book. So you can see here we started filling out a Spiritism book, and the book that the scroll then gets added into the book, it gets consumed, and then once you give the book back, that player can then cast that spell. So I think we've covered pretty much everything. I'm just going to roam around and talk a bit now. We've pretty much covered all the different schools and everything important, but now I just want to talk about playing a mage and the things to learn. The first thing I want to talk about is if you're playing a sheevra, or if you're playing any sort of mage that isn't a obese mage, your speed is important. When you're in a fight, pull your dagger. If you see here, your max speed increases when you pull your dagger. This will help you get away from enemies faster. If you then pop your clades, look how much faster your speed is. So if you're in a fight and a footy comes at you, this is vital, is increasing your speed as much as possible to get away from him. Then you can turn and you can start casting. So that's the first thing I would say, is always draw your dagger or draw some sort of weapon when running away. Next tip I would give is learn the range of your spells. So you can see here, we've got a bush pig over here. Just practice the range of your spells. This outburst has a very long range. You can cast from all the way back here. If you were casting with, say, a T-Lash from this range, you would miss. To try and learn the range of your spells and which ones you should use in which situations. Now we're closer. Maybe now's the time we would pop a T-Lash. So that's another thing I would try and practice. Not just your aim, but the range of where you can use certain things. Another tip is to look at your mana regen. So this is like really important as a mage. You can see here we're wearing a shield right now to cover our back. So this covers a lot of our back. We're in a flakestone shield. Great clipping. To cover any attacks to our back. When you're wearing that shield, you have very, very low mana regen. So you're around 25% pretty much. You can pop it off and your mana regen will shoot up to, what, 60, 70%. So in a fight, if you're far away, say the tree is an enemy, you would be casting here with no shield on. And then say the enemy runs at you, you pop the shield on and run away. Limiting your mana regen for a time being. And then once you're safe, you pop the shield back off and your mana regen comes back up. So always look at your mana regen. If you're in a long fight, like a siege or like a 10v10 that's going on for ages, another important thing you can do is you can just pop a piece of armor off. So you can pop, say, 2 pieces of armor off and your mana regen will shoot up to 100, 90%, 100. And then you can sit at the back and get your mana up. If you're safely in a position where you can take your armor off, you can do that. And then you can put them back on. That's very important in hybrid builds like paladins and death knights, because you go into a battle, drain all of your mana, and then you probably have to take your armor off after the battle to get it all back. Next, I would say find a way to deal with PvE and pets. PvE is a big part of the game. Pets are a big part of the game. Find a way to deal with it. It's fine trying to outrun things and use your magic. It's good to have a way to deal with PvE though. So for example, if I pull this Razorback right now, you need some way. If this Razorback is on you, this could be a pet direwolf or something, or this could just be a high level Razorback. You need a way to deal with it. Some people use a dagger. You can put some points into strength and have a low level dagger. And you just get used to parrying with the dagger. Or you could do what I do and use Elementalism. So if we use, say, stone, it's a very quick, short range spell. Try and have some way to deal with PvE and pets, because you're going to have it. You're going to have people put direwolves on you in fights. You're going to have people put mulvers on you in fights. You're going to be roaming around and maybe you'll get taken off your horse and there's 3 wolves around you. If you've got no way of dealing with that, it's a very fast way to lose all your inventory. So that's another tip I'd give. The only other thing I would say is you're only a squishy mage if you allow yourself to be a squishy mage. You can be a very powerful and tanky mage if you have the right setup. Get some decent armor. You can use things like Arc Bond to like share health with your pet, and then when you get hit, that would take like a piece of your damage. You can use tower shields to make, have a lot of defense. You can use Elementalism to really burn things down before they even get to you, and that's the same for players. You can use magic shields to protect from magic, and just get used to dealing with the different things you're going to come across in the game and the different spells that are useful in those situations. So I've just pulled a caster and a bandit there. This is just PvE, but anything that you're fighting in the game, there's a way to deal with it. We've got a bandit here. You can atrophy them and slow them down. And then when they attack, they're slow. This guy that was once quite strong is weak. He'll never get to you. You can death hand and get your life back. And there's really nothing they can do. So yeah, don't feel like you're some squishy mage. But yeah, that's it really. That's kind of the whole thing. That's the whole video. There's a ton of things that I could cover in here. I could make this an hour long, 2 hours long, but I feel like it's already so long. This has covered like the basics of everything in the game for a new player. If there's something specific you want to see, like how to team fight as a mage, how you should play in a team fight, where you should be, how you should position, what spells you should use in a team fight, how to deal with pets. Like if you want to see more PvP focused stuff, let me know. If you want to see more like how to clear high-end camps like Rhizars and Mulvers and things like that, tips like that for mages, let me know. How to get all the different Elementalism things and things like that. If there's anything you want to see specific, let me know in the comments, because this was just a broad things that I didn't know when I started and things that I wish was just laid out for me. So I just wanted to make it as simple as possible for new players to get into playing a mage, get their confidence up and start unlocking the spells and having fun. But yeah, there's definitely some stuff here that people probably want to know that I've missed, and just let me know. And if this has helped, I cover a ton of mortal content, so subscribe for more of that. I also stream over on Twitch, which I'll link down below. Also, anything I've mentioned in here, I'll link down below as references. But yeah, that's the video. Take care, everyone, and I'll catch you in the next one.